So I'm very excited today because today we'll be discussing an interesting challenge which is faced by many folks out there while they were preparing competitive programming in their college or in their professional lives. So have you ever faced any challenge while solving a new DP problem which you haven't solved before? And if your answer is yes, then you are at the right place. So let's get started. So this is the problem. Given an array A, find the maximum subset sum of the non-adjacent elements. So let's try to figure it out what the problem is trying to say. Let's suppose we have an array A with the elements 2, 1, 3, -4 and 5. So let's make this 2 as -2. So we have an given array and we have to find the maximum subset sum such that all the elements in the subset should be non-adjacent. So before discussing any solution or any approach to solve this problem, I want you guys to give it a try. So I hope you have tried your best. Now let's try to figure out all the possible subsets and let's try to find out the maximum subset sum. So for the given array, if I choose any element in the subset, suppose I choose the element at the ith index, this is my subset S. And if I choose any element at the ith index, then what constraint do I have? Definitely, as the problem statement goes, I cannot choose the element at I plus 1th index. And likewise, I cannot choose the element at I minus 1th index. So I minus 1th index. So I can't choose this. So let's try to figure out all the possible subsets with the given constraint. So now let's start with the index 0 and I'll name that subset as S1. So if I choose -2 here, then what all possibilities do I have? I can choose 3, I can choose -4 and I can choose 5. So in my first subset, what I'll try to do is I'll choose 3. So this is my subset. So this can be my one valid possible subset. I also have -2 and -4. I also do have -2 and 5. And there is one more possibility in which I can choose -2, 3 and 5. So these are all the possible subsets starting from the index 0 which I can include in my solution. So now let's move on to the first index. Let's name it as S5. If I choose the element at first index, that is 1, then I can choose -4 or I can choose 5. So in my first subset, I'll choose -4 and in my second subset, I'll choose 5. So these are all the possible subsets by including the element at or by starting from the first index. And let's move on to the third index now. So if I include the third index, then I'll choose 3. And what all possibilities I have? Of course, there is only one possibility, that is 5. I can't choose -4 because -4 is adjacent to 3. So I am choosing 5 here. So now we have calculated all the subsets. We have figured out all the subsets which satisfy my given constraint. And now let's try to find the sum and let's try to return the maximum sum. So for the first subset, the sum is 1. So for the second subset, it is -6. For the third subset, it is 3. For the fourth subset, it is 6. For fifth, it is -3. For sixth, it is again 6. And for the last subset, it is 8. So we are interested in this subset and 8 is the value which we have to return. So these kind of problems can be very intimidating for the first time. I personally do feel it is very tough to solve them by any intuition or just by having a look at any problem and to get the solution in the first time. So today my motivation is not to solve this problem, but to teach you guys how to approach these kinds of problems so that you can use that approach and that tricks whenever you face any new DB problems. So let's consider ourselves that we are very new to the competitive programming world and we know nothing about it and we are doing it for the first time. So let's try to figure it out. What can be the brute force solution for this problem? So while looking at the element at any index, what decisions can I make about the element at that index? Suppose the element E and it is present at the ith index. I can make two decisions about this index. Further, I can choose it to take in my possible subset and either I can reject it. So these are the only two possible conditions which I can incorporate in my solution. So now let's try to figure out what all information I need while I proceed from the 0th index to the last index, that is from the left to right. So suppose I choose to proceed from left to right. You can do it from right to left. So if I choose to proceed from left to right, what all information I need to choose the index at the element at this index? So I need to know the information whether I chose an element which was at the previous index of my current index. So this is my current index, suppose, and I need a variable which will store the value at the index, the value of the index which I chose the last. So let's name it as last taken index. And I also need one more variable to store my sum. So these three variables should suffice my approach. So as discussed, what we need to make any decision at a particular index, we need three values. That is the current index, or let's suppose we take last taken index first. So last taken index, I need the current index, and I need the sum up till now. So I can make any decision based on these three values, and let's try to figure it out what the decision tree for this brute force approach could look like. So if I'm starting from the index 0, which is -2, so what I'll initialize is I'll initialize last taken index to -1, because before 0 we don't have any valid indices. So my last taken index in this case will be -1, my current index will be 0, and my sum will be 0, because at the first level I haven't taken any decision to whether to choose an element or not. So now for -2, what all possibilities do I have? I have two possibilities: whether I can take it, and the second possibility is I'll reject it. So if I take -2, so what will be my last taken index here? Yes, you are right, it will be 0. I'll increment my current index, which will be 0 plus 1 is 1, and I have chose the element at the index 0, so I'll add -2 to the previous sum, which was 0. So 0 plus -2 is -2. And in the second case, I'm not choosing the element at the 0th index. So my last second index will be -1. My current index will be incremented by 1, which is 1. And my sum will remain as it is in the previous case, which is 0. So now we will be iterating through the first index until the last index. So for this node, I again have two conditions: whether I can take the element at the first index and whether I can reject it. But here you can figure it out that I can't choose the element at first index because my last taken index is 0. And if I choose the element at first index, it will violate my constraint. So as correctly thought by you, I can directly neglect this condition here. So in this case, I am left with only one decision to make. That is, I will reject the index. I'll reject the element at the first index. So my last index taken will be 0. I'll increment my current index, that is 2. And I am rejecting the element. So my sum will remain as it is, that is -2. And for this node, I again have two possibilities. That is, I will take it and I'll reject it. So now my last taken index was -1 and my current index is 1. So I can definitely choose the element at the first index. So my last taken index will be 1 in this case. I'll increment the current index and it will go to 2. And I will add the value at the first index to my current sum. So the value at the current index is 1. So this is my current index. And the value was 1. So I'll add 0 with 1. And in the next decision, I'll reject it. So my last taken index will be -1. I'll increment my current index and my sum will remain as it is. So that is 0. So now I'll move to the third index. Which is the second index. So again, for this node, I can make two decisions, whether I can choose it or whether I can reject it. So my last taken index was 0. And now I can definitely choose the element at the second index. So the element at the index 2. So my last taken index will be 2 here, which is this value. I'll increment the current index and I will add the value at the index 2 to the previous sum. So -2 plus 3, which is 1. And likewise, I'll make a decision of rejection in this case. So my last taken index will not change in this case, which is 0. I'll increment the current index, which is 3, and the sum remains as it is. So for this case, you might have correctly figured it out that I have only one decision to make, that is to reject the element at the index 2. So the only rejection case will be my last taken index will not change. I'll increment my current index and the sum will remain as it is, which is 1. For this node, I can make two decisions, which is I can take it and I reject it. So if I take it, then my last taken index will be 2. My current index will be 3. And I'll add the value at the index 2, which is 3, to the previous sum, that is 3. And for the rejection case, my last taken index will not change. I'll increment my current index and the value remains as it is. So we have covered the index 0, 1, 2. And now let's increment our current index. And now it comes to 3. So in this tree, this was for 0, zeroth index or the index 0. This was for the first, this was for the second, and this is for the third. And now you can see we are at the index 3. I'll name the index here. So now we are only left with only one decision here, which is we'll be rejecting it. Rejecting the element at index is equal to 3, and we are left with last index taken, which is 2. I'll increment my current index to 4, and the sum remains as it is. For this case, if I choose, then my last taken index will be 3. I'll increment the current index and I'll add the value at index equal to 3 to my previous sum, which is -4 minus 2, which will become -6. So now I'll make this clear. If I reject this, I have last taken index 0. I'll increment my current index and my sum will not change, which will be -2 again. So for this node, I can obviously make two decisions, which is I decide to take the element at index 3. So my last taken index will be 3. I'll increment my current index and I will add my sum to the value at the index equal to 3, which is 1 minus 4, which will be -3. And also I have one more possibility for this. This was acceptance and this was a rejection. So my last taken index will not change. I'll increment the current index and the value will be 1 as it is. So moving on to the next node, I only have one case here, which is the rejection, because these two indices are adjacent. So what I'll do is I'll simply reject. So my last taken index not change. I'll increment my current index and the sum remains as it is. So for the last node of this level, I again have two possibilities. So if I choose to take the element at index 3, so my last taken index will be 3. My current index will be incremented to 4, and I will add sum to the last to the index which I chose, which was 3. So 0 and -4, which gives me -4, and I'll reject it in the last case. So basically -1, 4 and 0. So these were the outcomes of the decisions taken at index 4. So now we'll move on to the last index. So as in this case, I again have two options. I'll make it small. So this is accept, this is reject. So for 4, 2, 4 and 1, I can choose the element at 4 because 2 and 4 are not at non-adjacent indices. So if I choose them, then my last taken index will be 4. I'll increment my current index to 5 and I'll add the current sum to the value at the index is equal to 4. So this will be 6. So yeah. Now moving on, if I am rejecting it, then the value of my last taken index will be 2. I'll increment the current index and the sum will remain as it is. I can only reject in this case. So my value will be 3, 5 and -6. I have again two options for this case, which is accept and reject. I'll make it more clear here. I'll be choosing the element at index equal to 4. That is, my last taken index will be 4. My current index will be incremented to 5. And I will add this -2 to 5, which will give me a sum of 3. And if I reject it, then my last taken index will remain as it is, which is 0. I'll increment my current index and sum remains as it is. So for this node, again, I am only left with one choice, which is the rejection. So my last taken index will be 3, current index will be 5, and sum will be -3. So for this node, I have two options. I'll choose the element at the 4th index. So my last taken index will be 4. My current index will be 5. And I will add 1 with this value, which is 5 here. So which will give me 6. So in the next case, I am rejecting it. So my last taken index does not change. I am incrementing my current index and my sum remains as it is. So for this case, again, I have two options. So if I choose the element at index equal to 4, then my last taken index will become 4. My current index will be incremented to 5. And my sum will be incremented by the value at the index 4, which is 3 plus 5. And this will give me a consolidated sum of 8. And if I reject it, then my last taken index is 2 again. My current index is 5 and my sum is 3. So for this node, I am again left with one decision, which is to reject it. And this will be 3. My current index will be 5 and my sum will be -4. And for the last node, I have again the two conditions, accept and reject. So I choose the element at index 4. So my last taken index will be 4. My current index will be 5, and I'll add the sum with the value at element equal to 4, at the index equal to 4, which is 5. So my sum becomes 5. And if I reject it, then my sum will remain as 0. So this is the decision tree which we have got, and we were interested in this node, which will return us the maximum sum. Equal to 8. Now let's try to write a brute force solution for this problem. So I hope you have given your best to code out the brute force solution for this problem, and I have also written a brute force solution, and let's try to understand how I have implemented it. So I have initialized a variable which is max answer, which will store our final answer, and I have initialized it to -infinity. So my solution, I named it as calc, and I have passed 3 parameters to it, that is last taken index, my current index, and sum, as discussed before in the decision tree. So in my first step, what I am doing is I am comparing max ANS to the sum, and my sum is my current sum. So this was my first step. In the second step, what I have written is the base condition for the recursion. That is, this is the base for my recursive function, and which says if my current index is greater than or equal to n, I will simply return from this function, because my indices will run from 0 to n-1. And if I found current index equal to n or greater than equal to n, then I'll just simply return from my function. So now I have written an if-else ladder. So let's try to figure it out what it is saying. So for the current index equal to 0, I didn't had any special cases because there was no valid indices before the index 0. So for the index 0, I had to make two decisions, whether to take the value at that index or whether not to take the value. So likewise, if I'm taking the value at the current index, which is 0, then what I've done is I have passed my last taken index as current index. I have incremented my current index by 1, and I have incremented by my sum by the value at the current index. And in my second condition, which was not to take it, I have again called the calc function. I have not changed my last taken index. I have incremented my current index by 1, and I'm passing my sum as it is. So this if covers the case for the index 0. Moving on further, in the else part, what I have checked is if my last taken index plus 1 is equal to my current index, which is if my last taken index is my previous index to my current index, then I'm left with only one condition, which is to reject the element at that index. So I have just copied the call for the not take condition here, which is the same call. I am not changing my last taken index. I am incrementing my current index by 1, and I am not changing my sum. And if this condition is false, then I am again left with two conditions, which is to take the element and which is not to take the element. And again implemented in the same manner as written before, which is if I'll be taking that element, then I'll be passing my last taken index equal to current index. I'll increment my current index by 1. I'll increment by sum by the value at that index. And if I don't take it, then I'll not change my last taken index. I'll increment my current index by 1, and I'll pass sum as it is. So this is the best. I'll complete the function here. So this is the best possible brute force approach you can write. There might be another approach, and let's try to figure it out, and let's try to optimize this solution. So by looking at this solution, do you get anything where we can optimize it? I think you should give it a try and try to figure it out what we can reduce, or how we can implement this function optimally, or what fundamentals we can apply when it takes us to the concepts of recursion, and try to reframe or optimize this code as possible. So now by looking at my previous solution, what I realized is I was implementing one condition in all the three cases. So that condition was not to take that element. So in my first condition, I implemented the not take. In my second condition, I again implemented a not take. And my third condition, I again implemented a not take. So why can't I remove this part outside of any condition check? So I'll be saving the complexity, the time complexity basically, in the case when I'm not selecting the element. So what I can do is I can remove these three calls. This is the first, this is the second, and this is the third, outside of any condition check. So this will be our first optimization, that is removing not take condition from if else ladder. And secondly, what I can do is I can implement a single call when I'm taking the element. And what I can check here is if my last taken index was not my previous index. So I can rewrite this if else ladder in an optimized way, which goes as this. So my first condition was not to take any element. So what I can write is simply pass the last taken index as it is, increment my current index by 1, and I'll pass my sum as it is. And for the take condition, my take condition is dependent on one decision, that is, if my last taken index plus 1 is not equal to my current index, then I'll take the element. And now I'll give the value of last taken index as current index plus 1. I'll increment, which will be current index. I'll increment my current index by 1. And I'll increment by sum by the value at that index. So in this way, we have made our function look more easy and more optimal than the previous solution by removing the unnecessary required if-else ladder. So now in our optimization phase 2, what we can observe here, have you observed this kind of recursion and try to analyze what kind of recursion it is. So if you have seen the way in which the calls are implemented, we are not doing anything or we are not computing anything after the recursive calls. So this was our first recursive call and this was our second recursive call. So we are not doing anything after the recursive calls. This is blank. So what kind of recursion it is and how we can optimize it? I want you to think further on it and come up with a good solution. Yes, you got it correct. This kind of recursion is known as tail recursion. So in tail recursion, there is nothing we are calculating or we are computing after we make any recursive calls. So in this case, what do you think we can optimize, or what parameter we pass to the function, we can remove it and try to rephrase this solution in a better looking way or in an optimal way. So I want you to think on it and come up with a good solution. So I hope you have given your best try, and let's try to figure it out how we can optimally write this or rephrase this solution again. So whenever I make any recursive calls, the recursive calls are very heavy because there is some amount of memory which gets allocated on the system stack, and there is always a memory assigned to all the parameters, all the variables which I pass as parameters to the recursive functions. So in this case, I had three options to reduce from, which were my three variables which I was passing as my parameters, which was the last taken index, my current index, and sum. So one thing I observed here is that I can't remove my last taken index and my current index because I'm using them as in my condition and they are very important to me. So what I can do is I can definitely choose the sum, and if you chose sum, then you are on the right track. So let's try to rephrase our solution by removing sum as parameter in our recursive call. So now we'll try to remove the sum as parameter which we are passing to the recursive solution. So what I'll do is I'll remove sum as a parameter to the recursive function. So if I remove the sum, I'll have to remove my first step. And I'll require two more variables to store the answers written by the recursive calls. Why two? Because we were making two calls here. So let's suppose I take my first variable as a and I'll initialize it to -infinity, and I'll take one more variable which is b and again initialize it to -infinity. I'll not change my base condition. My base condition remains as it is. But what I'll do is I'll take the value which is written by my first recursive call in my function A. And I will remove this sum variable from here. And secondly, I will take the value which is written by my second recursive call into variable B and remove this sum variable here and adding the value at the index, at my current index, with this recursive call, which is A of current index. And the most important part, we will be returning the maximum value of A and B. So in this way, we have optimized our solution to some extent than our previous solution by removing sum as an extra parameter to the recursive functions. So now, what do you think the time complexity of this solution is? While making every recursive calls, we were moving towards calculating of each and every subset and taking the max value from it. So for an array of given length n, we can have 2 raised to n subsets. So this is obvious that our time complexity for this function is of order 2 raised to n. And we want to reduce this exponential time complexity to polynomial time complexity. And let's see further how we can reduce or how we can optimize this code as possible. So let's try to optimize this solution further. So by looking at this solution, what do you think that what extra things we are doing in this function and how to optimize this code further? And if you are thinking about memoization technique, then you are on the right track, my friend. So as we saw previously in our decision tree, that for the same values of last taken index and current index, we were recalculating the values of the function calc. Now what we'll try to do is we'll try to store the values of the function calc for these values in some array. So in memoization, what we do is to avoid our extra recursive calls for which we have already calculated the answer, we look the answers into the array and return them in O of 1 time complexity. Nearly the constant time complexity, it might not be O of 1. So here, what we can do is we can make use of an array where we will be storing our answers for the combinations of last taken index and current index. So I don't require this max ns variable now, and I require a 2D array. Let's name it as dp of size n by n. And what we can do here is we can add one more condition before our base condition, that is, and I have to you must have observed that there was one change missing here when we removed our sum variable, which was in the base condition. If my current index is greater than or equal to 0, I will simply return value 0 here. So now, before my base condition, what condition I can add is, I can check if any value is there for the combination of my last taken index and current index in my 2D array dp. So before calling this function for my first time, what I'll do is I'll initialize every value of my dp array to -1. And now before my base condition, I'll check if the value if there is a non-negative value which exists in my dp array for this combination. So I'll take this base condition down and rewrite it here. If my current index was greater than or equal to n, I was simply returning 0. And I'll write one more condition. if dp of my last taken index and current index is not equal to -1, means we have already calculated the answer for it, then I'll return the value for the value found in that array, which is just return dp of last taken index and current index, and close the if condition here. Also, what I can do here is I have to store the value of the answers in the dp array. So dp of last taken index and current index will be initialized to max of a and b, and I'll simply return the same value, which is dp of last taken index and current index. So in this way, what we have done is we have reduced our time complexity to O of 2 raised to n to nearly O of n square. So I'll not be explaining how O of n square it is. I want you to analyze it, but I'm sure you will be getting it. And further, let's look at how we can optimize this code further. So in the previous case, we saw that our time complexity was reduced to O of n square. It was nearly O of n square. And the reason for that was my last taken index was ranging from 0 to n minus 1. And my current index was also ranging from 0 to n minus 1. So by looking at this code, do you really think, or what do you think the way in which we could optimize it further? So the one thing is very clear in our mind, that I will have to iterate my array at least once. So for this current index, I can't change the range of this current index. It will always remain 0 to n minus 1 because I have to iterate the array at least for one time. But if you think about the last taken index, do we really require it to iterate it from 0 to n minus 1? I want you to give it a try and come up with a good solution for it. So now I can clearly observe here is that I don't require that my last taken index should iterate from 0 to n minus 1. What I require for my current index is that just one information, that is whether I have selected the index at my previous index or not. So what we'll be doing is that we will be reducing the range of our last taken index from 0 to n minus 1 to just 0 to 1. And I'll explain you how it will go. So I'll reduce the range of my last taken index from 0 to 1 and try to rephrase this solution. So in my not take condition, what I can be sure about my current index is that I haven't taken the value at my current index. So what I can do is I can just make the last taken index to 0, suppose, and in this condition, what I can do is in my take condition, what I can do is just check if my last taken index was 0 . what I can write is my last taken index if it was 0, then I'll choose the current index. Why? Because my last taken index is now storing the information whether I have selected my previous index or not. So my last taken index is acting an information to me about the selection of my previous index. So the condition says if I am not selecting my previous index, then I'll select the current index, the value at the current index. So I have taken the value at the current index and I'll pass the value of last taken index, which I have to pass in my recursive call, as 1. So I'll try to explain it to you again what I have done. What I observed is that there was no need for last taken index to range from 0 to n-1. So what I did is I just tried to store information about my previous index. If I'm taking the value at my previous index, then I'll pass my last taken index as 1. And if I'm not taking the value at my previous index, then what I'll do is I'll just pass the value as 0. So my solution becomes more simple now, because I have reduced the range of my last taken index from 0 to n-1 to 0 to 1. And also we need to take care of this condition if I am not taking the previous element. So the last taken index equals to 0 implies that I haven't chosen the value at the previous index. So what I'll be doing is I'll be choosing the value at the current index and passing the last taken index as 1. I'll be incrementing the current index and I have chosen the value at the current index. So likewise, what we have done is we have also reduced our space complexity to n square, from n square to 2 into n, and hence our time complexity as well. So until now we have observed that we have a very strong point and a very strong intuition behind the selection of the element at the ith index. So we will be selecting our element at the ith index if we have the information about our previous index, which is the i-1. So the solution just we saw now, we reduced it from O of n square to n, and this solution has time complexity of O of n. So now let's try to write a more versatile code for this solution using the technique of tabulation. So now we have reached a stage where we can try to figure out a strong intuition for the calculation of the answer at the index I. So let's suppose I am at the index I and I want to calculate the answer at index I, and let's suppose we store that answer into an array at the index I. So what all information do I need to calculate the answer at index I? I need two prime informations. The first is about the value at the index i-1, that is answer of i-1, and also the values which occur before the i-1, that is 0 to i-2. So for these values I will be storing the answers into ans of 0 until ans of i-2. So now what I can figure it out is my ANS or answer at index I is dependent on two values, that is ANS of I minus 2 and ANS of I minus 1. So while I am processing any answer, suppose I am at the ith index, and while I am processing the answer for the ith index, what I am doing is I am making sure that I have considered the element at the index I in my solution. So what does this mean? So let's say I have an array of 2, 1, 3, 4 and 5, and my current index at this time is 3. So while calculating answer for ANS of 3, what I made sure is I processed the ARR of 3, which is 4, and by processing means I had to make two decisions on it, which were whether I could take it or whether I could reject it. So likewise, when I am calculating answer at the ith index, I have two informations with me, which is ANS of I minus 2 and ANS of I minus 1. So in the first case, what I can do is I can blindly add the value at the ARR of I. And why I am doing is because to consider the value at ARR of I need to make sure that values at the index I minus 1 is not considered. So as discussed before, on the right side of the part, if I am processing any answer for the index I am considering all the elements less than or equal to I. So for ANS of I have considered all the elements from 0 to I. So here in the first case, I could blindly add ARR of I in my answer of I minus 2 because I have only processed for ANS of I minus 2, I have only processed elements till 0 to I minus 2. And I am not worried what happened with the element at index I minus 1. But the same thing is not applicable with the second condition. I cannot blindly add ARR of I here because while processing ANS of I minus 1, I could have taken the value at ARR of I minus 1, and likewise I would have rejected the ARR of I minus 1. Now, if I am rejecting the value at I minus 1, then I don't care about to process the element at ith position. Why? Because if I don't select the ARR of I minus 1, then I am left with two choices for ARR of I, that is to select it or to reject it. But what if I select the element at ARR of I minus 1. Then I am constrained not to select element at ARR of I, or the element at the index I. So therefore, we will modify this second statement by removing ARR of I from here. So to write it in a clean manner, what I derived is my answer at ith position is dependent on two values. First is the answer at I minus 2th position plus the value at the ith index, and secondly my answer at I minus 1th position. And to select the answer from these two cases, I'll just select the maximum value of them. So here, what can I write is, or what can I conclude about the answer at the index I is, it will be maximum of answer at I minus 2th index plus the value at the ith index and the value at the I minus 1th index. So this becomes my recurrence relation for this problem. And now let's see further how we can code this solution. So the problem we are discussing today is from the platform HackerRank and it's max array sum. So I hope when you guys get some time you can give it a try on HackerRank. So let's try to code out the solution using the recurrence relation we just found out. So I'll remove the pre-coded stuff and start coding it from freshly. So the input format says first the number of the elements in the array and secondly the array elements. So let's try to write the main function. I'll initialize an array to take my input. So let's say there are any elements in my array and I'll take the value of n, and likewise I'll scan every element in my array. So I'm starting here from the position 2 because if you remember our recurrence relation was ans of I is max of ans of I minus 2 comma plus ARR of I comma ans of I minus 1. So this was my recurrence relation. So while I am starting from index 2, I have the value of I minus 2 as 0 and the value of I minus 1 will be 1, so that I do not violate the constraint of array, that is any element in or the indices of the array start from 0. So I'll scan all the elements in my array. So it should be n plus 1 because I'm pushing my array from 0, start position of my array from 0 to 2. That's why I'll push my end index from n minus 1 to n plus 1. So now I need an array into which I can store my answers and I'll directly start processing it. So starting from the 2th index until n plus 1th index, what I can do here is just implement the recurrence relation, which is ans of max of ans of I minus 2 plus arr of I, comma ans I minus 1, and just simply print the answer at my last index, which is ans of n plus 1. And let's try to run the code now. So yes, it is passing all the base test cases, and now let's see whether it passes for all the test cases. On submitting the solution, so yes, finally we have solved the challenge using our recurrence relation, and finally the time complexity of this solution, as you have guessed it correctly, which is O of n, and n stands for the number of elements in my given input or in my given array. So thank you guys. I hope you liked this video and the approach, and I hope all the best, and I hope that you will use this approach and technique whenever you solve any new DP problems or any problems in future. Thank you very much.